Okay, so welcome back, and we're going to do an application type problem that involves solving a system of equations, and we're going to solve it algebraically. Okay, so again, read the problem carefully and pick out what the equations you need to use. Okay, so in this example it says by weight, one alloy is 70% copper and 30% zinc. And another alloy is 40% copper and 60% zinc. The question is how many grams of each is required to make 300 grams of an alloy that is 60% copper and 40% zinc. Now right away it looks complicated, but it's really not. Okay, it seems like there's a lot going on, but let's just take this piece by piece. So we're going to take one alloy, right? We're going to take some of one alloy because we're going to have to mix these two alloys, right? To get our 60%, 40%, right? So we're going to have to mix a quantity of the first alloy and a quantity of the second alloy. And we know that those both of those quantities have to add up to 300 grams. So let's do this. Let's define C, right? Let C be the quantity of copper. Okay, so the amount of copper in grams. Okay, C equals the amount of copper in grams. And we'll say Z equals the amount of zinc in grams. And so we know that our first equation is going to have to be C plus Z equals 300, right? Okay, so that's one equation. Okay, now what about the second equation? Well, we could approach this in two different ways. We could focus on the copper that's in each of the alloys and the resulting alloy that we want, or we could focus on the amount of zinc. Okay, so if we look at from the point of view of the amount of copper, well, we know that the first alloy has what percentage copper? Oh, hold on a second. I did this wrong. Hold on a second. That's not going to work. We don't want to use C and Z for the amount of copper and zinc. Because remember, it's the alloy. The alloy is made up of copper and zinc, so we don't want to do this. So I was wrong from the beginning. So we're going to have to, instead of C and Z, I was trying to think of something that would be better. But let's just do A and B for alloy 1 and alloy 2. Okay? So we'll say A is the amount of alloy 1, the first alloy, and we'll say B is the amount of alloy 2. We'll do it that way, okay? The way I had it set up was wrong because it's not the amount of copper plus the amount of zinc that adds up to 300. It's the amount of alloy 1 plus the amount of alloy 2 that adds up to 300. So that was wrong. So now the equation that we start with is going to be A plus B equals 300. Okay, so that's correct. Now, going back to what I was saying is we can approach this from the perspective of looking at the amount of copper in each or the amount of zinc. So if we look at the amount of copper, well, alloy 1 is 70% copper. alloy 2 is 60%, or excuse me, 40% copper. And the resulting alloy, right, the 300 grams, needs to be 60% copper. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the copper, the amount of copper in alloy 1, add it to the copper in alloy 2, and that should equal, when I add those together, should equal the amount of copper in alloy, the third alloy. Well, how do I represent the amount of copper by weight of alloy A? Well, it's 70% copper. So if I take 70% of the amount of alloy 1, which is A, if I multiply those two, that's going to give me the amount of copper. Well, so that means I'm going to take 0.7 times A. That's going to represent the amount of copper that that first alloy has in grams. And then if I take alloy B, well, that's 40% copper. So the amount of copper in grams is going to be 0.4 times the amount of the alloy. And then, of course, the resulting, when I add these two amounts, I should get what? 60% copper. Well, I have a total of 300 grams, and 60% of that should be copper. So I'm going to take 0.6 times 300. Which equals 180 grams. So that's one equation. Now, I could have also looked at this from the perspective of the amount of zinc. And so the amount of zinc should also add up. So I could have wrote my equation this way. Well, I could have looked at, instead of the amount of copper adding up, I could have made sure that the amount of zinc adds up. So, what would the amount of zinc be? Well, it's going to be 30% zinc. So if I'm looking at copper here, so let's write copper for this one. And if I focus on zinc, that's 0.7 copper. And if I use zinc, if I'm looking at it from the perspective of zinc, it's going to be what? 0.3 times A plus 0.6 times B equals, well, what? It's going to be 0.4 times 300. So this amount of zinc in alloy 1 plus this amount of zinc in alloy 2 needs to add up to this amount of zinc in the resulting alloy when I mix them, or in this case, 120 grams. Okay, so now I can use either one of these equations with the first one. Okay, I only need two equations. So I can use this one with this one, or this one with this one. Okay? Okay, so let's do that. So let's just choose these two. Okay, so now let me set it up over here. So we got A plus B equals 300, and we've got 0.7A plus 0.4B equals 180. So they're in standard form. So I just need to multiply the top one by a constant to eliminate one of these two, or to make the coefficients the same for one of these two. So I'm going to multiply by 0.7. Doesn't matter which one. I could have multiplied by 0.4. So let's multiply by 0.7. Okay? So what's that going to do? That's going to give me, oops, right? If I multiply by 0.7, I'm going to get 0.7a plus 0.7b equals 0.7 times 300, which is 210. And then I'm going to get 0.7a, so I'm just going to copy the bottom one, 0.4b equals 180. And so now in this case, since the coefficients are the same with the same sign, I'm going to subtract these two. So I'm going to subtract the bottom one from the top one. So this is going to be 0. And then 0.7 minus 0.4 is 0.3. Oops, not -3. It's going to give me a 0.3. B. And then 210 minus 180 is 30. And so if I divide both sides by 0.3, what do you get? B equals 100 grams, which means, how much of alloy 1 do I need? Well, that means that alloy 1, the amount of alloy 1 has to be, they have to add up to 300. So that means alloy A, the first alloy, has to be 200 grams. So there's my solution. So in order to get 300 grams of an alloy that is 60% copper and 40% zinc, I need to mix all 100 grams of the second alloy with 200 grams of the first alloy. And I'm done. That's it. Have a great day.